Okay, so next question from Timothy is it possible that anxiety can cause chest pains? And the short answer is yes. High levels of stress, high levels of anxiety, especially when the autonomic nervous system fight, flight, or freeze gets triggered, gets activated, we can have a whole host of physical symptoms. I mean, a lot of these symptoms, if they happen over and over again and they happen intense enough, is actually what leads to anxiety attacks or panic attacks. So, yes, it is possible that anxiety can cause chest pains. So some of the other symptoms that are common with anxiety, once again tied to fight, flight, or freeze, would be sweaty palms. Your body becomes flushed or becomes overheated. If your fingers could actually become super cold, and your skin can become clammy and cool. Rapid heart rate is another one that might be similar to the chest pains. Just actual aches and pains in the body, because chances are, if you're dealing with anxiety, if you're in a situation which is anxiety inducing, then you're most likely clenching, you're tensing, there's certain muscles in your body, you're holding your shoulders up, you're ready to get out of there. I mean, once again, it always comes back to fight, flight, freeze. So first off, I would always double check with a doctor if these kinds of chest pains keep coming up, and get yourself cleared, because we've got the mental component, what's happening inside the body, but we also want to double check and make sure biologically, physically, that everything is okay. If you don't have a history of that and you don't have that, yeah, it is possible that you could actually be tensing yourself up throughout the day. So anxiety can cause these things to happen. I notice if it's a particularly stressful day, I might have pain across the chest. The other thing we have to double check is, like, were you at the gym the day before? Were you doing a physical activity the day or two before? And this is just a delayed muscle soreness onset. So that can take some time as well, and it can be mistaken for anxiety, and often is. But what do we do if you're noticing these things? Well, like I said, your best bet would be to follow up with a physician. If it's something that seems urgent, you might want to look into that. But you could also utilize a lot of the emotional regulation tools that are out there. You can use some of the mindfulness tools that are out there. I've, I know I said this earlier, but 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That 5 things I see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. And why I actually like utilizing this particular exercise is it brings me right into the moment. It allows me just to get in touch with what's going on and pay attention to other senses besides my chest hurts. Pay attention to your breathing, because anxiety can actually cause shallower breaths. We're trying to keep ourselves protected. We're not taking as deep of a breath. Sometimes just doing the mindfulness exercise where you're paying attention to your breath and purposely slowing that down will cause the tension, will cause the pain in your chest to become less, or to dissipate. And the mindfulness component also just allows us to be aware of what's going on and what your mind is actually attaching to, because a lot of times in ACT, we talk a lot about relational association, where we're connecting things together that may or may not be the case. And your mind, of course, if it feels all this, is trying to figure out why. What is this all about? Is this a problem that actually needs to be solved? Because, again, well, the mind's #1 job is to solve problems. So to wrap that question up, yes, it is possible that anxiety can cause chest pains. Like I said, if it's something that you've noticed, if it's newer, it's definitely worth following up with. But once you've actually visited your physician and you've been able to clear that, then it's most likely the anxiety is the culprit. Okay, so this next question is from Scott, and he is asking, when is it beneficial to think negative? Is always seeing the good and not the bad beneficial? Well, once again, this comes back to the mind's #1 job is trying to solve problems. And in order to do that, we do need to identify what is not working, what's not useful, what's happening here that we could do something that would make the situation better. So yes, I would absolutely say that it is beneficial to think negatively. in the right context. Once again, talking about coronavirus, I can think about all the catastrophic things that might happen and with the economy and with my job and with my own health or with my friend's health or my child's health or my parents' health, whatever. I can go all over the place with that. I can let my mind just go all over the place with that. And that would not be as beneficial because it's not something that you have a workable solution for right here in this moment. What matters right now? What can you do right now? Go wash your hands. You can make sure, hey, maybe you can have that conversation with them about, I'm concerned about this, but ultimately you don't have much control over what those people around you do. So it always comes back to your business. What can I actually do here to make what I'm doing better? And yeah, I would say, is seeing the good and not always the bad beneficial? Well, I think it's important and it's beneficial for us to remember to be grateful for the things that are going like we were hoping, that are going the way we want. So, in that aspect, I would say, yeah, no, yeah, exactly. So he was just following up with that, and it's basically, is this just another way that you can escape or avoid is focusing on the good, and that's absolutely true. So one of the things you have to be careful of is that if I'm pushing away the negatives, if there are things that need to be done, and once again, knowing what my values are helps me to align in that direction. And sometimes, like for instance, I just gave the example of waking up and working out. I may not want to do that. I may not feel like doing that. It may not be a good thing, but it is useful for me to move in that direction. And then it comes back to the question is, am I willing to experience a certain level of discomfort, actual chest pain, from lifting weights, and pushing through that. But yes, it is also possible if I'm trying to negate these things, I'm actually escaping or avoiding something that needs to be done. Maybe there's a conversation that you need to have. Maybe there is an action that needs to be followed through on. And we want to play around and pay attention to, am I going for the short-term piece, which is not aligned with my core values, or am I allowing the anxiety to just override me and stop me in place? So the fight, flight, or freeze, all the different things that go along with that. And you can ask yourself, okay, well, is this thing going to be a gift I give my future self? Is this going to be beneficial in the long run? So yes, is always seeing the good and the bad beneficial? I would say not necessarily, not now. We're using that term always, so we have to be careful with that. But I would say is looking to the good, trying to remember the good, especially because the mind has a typical tendency of focusing on all those things that are negative. It's important for us to remember that there are also plenty of good things happening around us and within us and that we're doing on a daily basis as well. Okay, so the next one from Raphael is, what are some tips for dating when you struggle with anxiety? Well, I would imagine just being with somebody, exploring somebody, even asking somebody you don't even know out, making that initial connection. It's all unknown. You have no idea what the outcome is going to be. That is, in definition, like where anxiety comes from, is dealing with things that are unknown. The fear of failing, the fear of coming across as defective somehow, the fear of saying something that I shouldn't say. And of course, anytime we open up our mouths, we risk insulting somebody. We risk, we run the risk of making somebody uncomfortable or upset. Um, and we have to keep that in mind. Are we just going to not talk? That's not necessarily that's not a good strategy for moving towards things that matter to you. So what I would say, some tips for dating when you're struggling with anxiety, is to remember or figure out what your prime values actually are. I've actually found in working with a lot of folks, and I've done a lot of this, people that are dating, doesn't matter if they're in their 20s or they're in their 60s, a lot of those emotions come to the surface. That you're making yourself vulnerable, you're putting yourself out there. It's not going to be the most comfortable situation. It can't be. However, if you are content, if you know what your prime values are, you know what you're looking for, you're actually out there and you're enjoying the person you're with. And if the evening or the time doesn't go in the direction that you were hoping, the person doesn't seem to line up with your values, it's okay to let that opportunity go. And that's probably another giant fear running in the background, is that this is an opportunity and I should seize the moment. Well, but that's one opportunity, and there will be plenty of opportunities. Now, granted, every single time we have to go and re-engage with somebody new, that's not easy. So there's a lot of effort, a lot of energy. And so the question then comes back is, are you once again willing to experience a certain level of discomfort in order to move towards why you're doing this? Why does this matter? What's the actual core value? Unity, adventure, connection, intimacy. Those are the things that we're doing this for. So are you actually willing to deal with a certain level of physical discomfort, mental discomfort, emotional discomfort in order to press through and move into something that will be meaningful and lifelong and will last and will move you in the direction of what those core values actually are. So the tip again is being willing to recognize that this is just kind of how the process of life works, how we move from here to there, requires a certain amount of discomfort and energy. I mean, just getting up out of your chair requires a certain amount of energy, and for some people, a certain level of discomfort, especially if you have like fibromyalgia or you're dealing with arthritis. So we want to make sure that it's those values, those are the things that keep us motivated. And there's a certain level of anxiety to keep us on our toes, to keep us more alert. We want to be able to engage. So we want a small level or a minimal amount of anxiety in order so that we can actually be there with them and be present. But if we allow that to go beyond too much, if it becomes overbearing, I'm not going to be good enough. This person's going to discover something about me. They're not going to like this, or they're going to be nuts, and this isn't going to work out. And this is wasting my time. Maybe I should have gone with this other option. Just notice what you're doing. Use your mindfulness techniques. See all these different thoughts, and then turn all that, separate from it, and move towards what actually matters the most to you. It's just not the easiest situation, whether it's going out on a date with somebody for the first time, going to your job for the first time, joining a new club, doing a new social activity, even going to a party with friends and they're having other people there that you don't know. These are all variables. These are all unknowables. These are all things that we just don't know what direction it's going to go. That definitely causes a certain level of stress and anxiety. Not to mention we're carrying around all of our baggage and our rules and our tools about how the world should work. So once again, the mindfulness component, the acceptance component, the being able to just hold this there, because the reason why it's uncomfortable and it hurts is because it matters. You really want that connection. So just keep that in mind when it comes to struggling with anxiety while dating.